Sometimes I like to use this analogy how life is actually like climbing a mountain, if you will. And how sometimes, yeah, we stand on the mountaintop and it's amazing. And sometimes we're down in the valley, right? And sometimes we're in the middle. We're either going up or we're coming down. And my talk today specifically is for those of you who maybe down in the valley, way down in the valley. I mean, way down. For those of you that are currently on the mountaintop, thank you. Like, stay there, be there. We need you to be on the mountaintop. So thank you. Hold that space. Stay strong. For those of you that are somewhere in between, thank you. Because let's face it, often we spend a lot more time in between than we do at the top or the bottom. That's the truth. But we need you if you're somewhere in between. So it's been kind of interesting to me over the last couple of weeks. I've actually spoken with some people that are going through some really, really difficult times. And some are friends, and actually there's been a few people in our congregation that are going through some really difficult times right now. And the people that I've talked to have both said the same thing. It sounds something like this: I have literally tried everything I know how to do. I don't care if it's some mental trick or if it's some spiritual tool or whatever it is. It ain't working. It's not working. And then, of course, it's followed up by a question that sounds something like, what's wrong with me? What should I do? And there's even sometimes the question of, where is God? Where is he? Where is she? Where is it at? They've prayed, they've done all the affirmations, they've read the books, they're trying these different things, they're trying to do all the positive things and all the things we talk about here often. It ain't moving. It ain't going anywhere. And there's a lot of pain, lots of pain. And, honestly, when they tell me their stories, my God, I'm human. I've had these experiences, and my heart just goes out to them. Because, like you, I've had a few of those moments in my life where it's not a whole lot of fun to be there in any way, shape, or form. Those moments when you feel completely alone, when it feels like there's absolutely no support, when it feels like, I don't know if I'm ever going to get out of here. And again, it feels like you're just all alone. And your mind keeps searching for answers, trying to make sense of whatever it is that's going on, trying to figure out why. And there's nothing. There's absolutely nothing. And sooner or later, you start asking the question, what's the point of all this? And again, where is God? And it's interesting because from a biblical standpoint, it actually talks about this in the book of Psalms. It says, yea, though you walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. But it ain't working because it's not feeling like thou art with me, right? So last week, I spoke about the story about when Jesus went into and spent the 40 days out in the desert, right? But here's the difference. Jesus chose to go out into the desert. There are times, even in my life, where I chose to do some really crazy, obnoxious stuff for spiritual enlightenment and spiritual growth. I went and sat in the woods for 4 days without any food, without any protection, wide open. And I'm not going to sit there and list all the stuff that I've done, but it's been pretty crazy. And not only that, I know a lot of you have done some other things as well, trying to figure it out. But those were choices. We decided to do that. But I'm talking about the times when you're not inviting these things to show up. And so many times what happens is life takes us there, whether we want to go there or not. Does everybody know what I'm talking about? Amen. A relationship falls apart, a business collapses, a health crisis appears, and I could sit here and make a list of all the different things that can happen, right? So there are these situations that come up when this happens, and suddenly we find ourselves into what the mystics have called the dark night of the soul. They're dark nights of the soul. And that phrase, the dark night of the soul, actually comes from a 16th century mystic, St. John of the Cross. That's where this came from. And he used it to describe a spiritual passage where literally what is happening is the old ways of understanding life and God fall apart. They fall apart. So you've got this part of your life that you've been leaning on the entire time, and all of a sudden you try to lean on it, and guess what happens? It's not there. It's not there. And so now you're sitting there all disoriented. You don't know what is happening to you, but this is happening. It's undeniable that this thing is happening for you, right? And in the dark night of the soul, the things that once used to give you comfort are taken away from you. It ain't fun, folks. It's not fun at all. Prayer may feel empty. Meditation feels impossible. The spiritual practices that once brought you peace are gone. Silent. There's nothing. Radio, silent. And it feels like you're walking through this long night where there's no light. There's no path on how am I going to get out of here. There's no certainty at all about, well, where am I going? What am I doing in all this? And yet, my experience has been that actually there is something that's happening. Even though it doesn't feel like it, even though we can't see it, we don't understand it, and it feels like anything good could potentially come out of these moments. And that's because this idea or this thought is it's not punishment. My observation for me personally is that it's about transformation. That's what's happening. It's painful, but there is a part of me when I have gone through these, and I've had a few of them in my life, where there's a part of me that's actually dying. That's what's happening. There's a version of me that's dying that I don't want to let go of. What's happening is I'm being tapped on the shoulder and said, it's time to grow, it's time to expand, it's time to become more and step into a new version of yourself. And I don't want to. My ego certainly doesn't want this to happen. And so then what does it look like? It looks like me fighting frantically to hold on to the old because I don't want to. But when you're in the middle of it, I will tell you something right now. It doesn't feel spiritual at all. Zero. It feels terrifying. It feels lonely. It feels like everything you thought you understood about life has stopped making any sense whatsoever. Anybody been there? Yeah. So, if you think about it, even Jesus went through the moment when he was on the cross. He cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" in the book of Matthew. And if you think about it, here's Jesus, who we consider to be this master, and we still do, and we love Jesus. But he had his moment where it was like, man, where are you? Why aren't you showing up? And so even he felt abandoned in a moment. And I would bet if you were to talk to him or he were to come down here, he would say, yeah, I had more than one of those. Wasn't just one. I'm sure he had more than one, right? But it tells us something that's really, really super important about those moments. And maybe this isn't this thought or this idea of your faith has failed. Do you ever think that maybe these times are just part of the path? That maybe it's normal? Like maybe you didn't screw anything up or you didn't do anything wrong. Maybe God really is there in those moments, even though we can't see him or her and that we just can't feel or grasp it. And even though we don't understand it, maybe this is just part of it. I've had a few dark nights of the souls. In 2010, I went through one of the darkest periods of my life. The real estate market had collapsed, my mortgage business. Some of you don't even know this part of me. Do you know I used to own a mortgage business, had 100 employees, was licensed in 8 states? I was rocking. It was happening. It was real. And 2008 hit, and I held on for dear life. And then finally, 2010, I couldn't do it anymore. It was gone. And so here I sit. I wasn't sleeping. I couldn't sleep. I literally couldn't sleep. I was consumed by fear. I wasn't eating. It wasn't good. I was absolutely scared to death of losing my business, losing my house, losing everything. It was not pretty. I know you're looking at this version of Mike and you think, him? Yeah, me. That was real. That really was happening in my life. And a strange thing was, I was going to Unity, folks. I knew all the tools. I had all the stuff. I had everything that I was taught to use, and they weren't working. They were not working. I tried everything. Wasn't working. The fear was still there. The anxiety was still there. And I felt like I was drowning. I felt like I was dying. That's what it felt like. And so I had this small trip that I had planned before things really got intense. And so even though I didn't have a lot of money to go on it, it was just for a couple of nights. And so I scraped together a few bucks just to pay for gas and stay in a cheap hotel. And I thought, I'm going to do this. I need to get away. I need a break. I need something here. And so I went. And on the last day of the trip, I was standing in a gift shop, and I just saw this little mug, and it really, really spoke to me. And I just thought, this little thing could be a symbol of hope for me. And so it was cheap. It was only like $5, but it made me happy. And I said, screw it, I'm buying it. And so I bought it as a reminder and as for hope. And so a few days after I got home, I was in the kitchen and I was making myself some coffee. And the mug was sitting on the counter and I was getting all the stuff ready. And all of a sudden, I bumped it. And it smashed. And it smashed on the floor into 100 pieces. And I remember standing there looking at it and just thinking to myself, really, God? I can't even have a coffee mug. I know that's funny, but it wasn't in the moment. Trust me. That's how dark it was. That's how much pain there was. And I sat there and cried. And cried. And cried. And that was my breaking point. I was devastated. I was angry. I was angry at everything. I was angry at life. I was angry at God. I was angry at myself. Whew, man. I remember just thinking, I'm done. I'm done. And I don't mean go kill yourself done, but I'm done. I'm done pretending. I'm done playing this game. I can't keep pretending that I feel supported in my life by this thing that I've believed in my entire life when I'm not feeling supported right now. I'm not. So at the time, I did the only thing that made sense to me. I stopped. Stopped doing all the things. I stopped praying. I stopped reading all my spiritual books. I stopped meditating. I stopped everything. And so for several months, I didn't allow myself to even think about God or personal growth and development or anything spiritual, any of it. I just got to the point to where it was like, I just need to take care of me. And if I don't got anything else, all I can try to do to the best of my ability is to just take care of myself. And so therefore, for a while, it felt like I was completely alone. Off into a walk in the desert with nobody, just me. And as I was out there in the desert with nothing happening, it was really lonely for a while. It was really hard for a while, but over time, I noticed little shifts, little. And this didn't happen overnight. It didn't like all of a sudden one day I go, whoa, not even close. That is not what happened. But I started to notice little things that happened. And then as the days turned into weeks, that turned into months, slowly things just began to shift. I started getting through the big crisis and things started to calm down a little bit for me, but I was not in any hurry to be getting back at all. But things definitely started to change internally for me. And it's not because I was trying to force anything, because I wasn't. It's not because of anything other than I just noticed I was changing. Because I really stopped trying to fix everything every 5 minutes. I just stopped. I stopped trying to make something spiritual happen. I just stopped. I just focused on getting through one day at a time. And oddly enough, that helped. It helped me. It did. Because I wasn't any longer fighting with myself. I wasn't fighting with reality. I wasn't trying to force anything. I wasn't begging something to change. I was done with that, all of it. And after about 6 months, I would say, and I'm guessing it's hard for me to pinpoint exactly what happened, but I'd gone through this process, this transformation. And again, I want you to understand, I mean, I was not on the mountaintop. I was just barely starting to come out of the valley. And all of a sudden, I had a book show up. It's called A Journey Beyond Words. And it's from somebody who studied the Course in Miracles. And of course, the first thing I wanted to do was burn it and throw it away. I'm not kidding. But what I noticed was that every day or two, I would go in there and just look at a couple of words. That was enough. That was enough. And then I'd set it down. And then a couple days later, I'd go look at another couple of words. Set it down. Okay. All right. And over time, what started to happen was I felt like I was so gently being held by something. I was not going to call it God, not at that time. But I felt like I was being held so gently, so softly, so compassionately. And I started to feel like there was something that understood where I was not trying to push or force or rush me into anything. But there was something undeniable that was holding me in the space and supporting me, knowing that I was still extremely vulnerable. But it held me. It held me. And what it reminded me of as I started to think about it was, you know how before a butterfly emerges, it goes through a stage called the chrysalis. Looks kind of something like that. And in that chrysalis, the caterpillar actually dissolves into what scientists describe as biological soup. Yeah. And so what they do is they literally go through this point, and you can see the progressions in the slide that I'm sharing with you, where you can see them firmly into the chrysalis and then the progression to eventually where the butterfly comes out of the chrysalis and it's born again. It's literally where this old part of us dies. It dies. And then all of a sudden it breaks down before the butterfly can emerge. And when I look back at that period of my life, that's exactly what it felt like. It felt messy. It felt uncomfortable. But what I was starting to understand, and now I can really see it, it was necessary. It was necessary. Something old in me had to dissolve so the new me could be born. That's what these times are. That's what they are. And when that period eventually passed, I returned to prayer. I returned slowly to meditation. And I felt guilty. I felt guilty. I had abandoned God. How could me, Mike Rowe, the spiritual guy, how could he abandon God? And it took a while for me to understand that it was okay. Like, it was really okay. And not only was it okay, I would say it was necessary. I would say that it was necessary. But somehow I thought I had failed spiritually. I screwed the whole thing up. But here's the thing. Afterwards, and as I started to heal and as I started to come back, and it took me, by the way, it took me a couple of years. So this wasn't me in 3 months or 6 months, everything changed and I was back. Oh no. It took a couple of years for me to fully get back into it. And again, the whole time I felt like I was just being held by this beautiful, beautiful presence that knew what my timing was, what was necessary, what wasn't necessary, and it was patience. It was patient. It was compassionate. And that slow turnaround was exactly what I needed. I couldn't go fast. There was no fast, not like now. None of it. But that was part of the process. And what I realized after time was, in the first place, what I was assured, what I was told, was that I didn't do anything wrong. Nothing. Nothing. And the other thing that I realized, in truth, I was never alone. I was never alone. Even though it felt like it, even though I would have sworn it, even though I didn't want to hear about it, in truth, I was never alone. Not for one moment. So what I learned through this whole entire process was that sometimes the most spiritual thing a person can do, and I know that you're going to find this crazy, that you came here to hear a spiritual message and how you should be applying all the tools all the time, 24/7. What I'm going to tell you is the best thing that you could possibly do at times when it's like this, when you're going through the dark night of the soul, stop. Stop it. Just stop and take care of yourself. Do whatever you need to do to take care of yourself. Seriously. And if that means you can use some of that stuff, great. But when I have somebody come in and talk to me and they're going through one of these moments and they're telling me how they're trying to apply all these spiritual principles, why aren't they working? That's why they're not working. So does it make sense to sit there and tell them, well, you just got to pray harder. You're just not doing it right. Let me tell you why you're screwing that up. How's that going to work? How's that going to sound? Probably not really well. Probably not. Stop trying to force something that isn't working. Stop trying to fix yourself. Stop begging God to change something. Just stop. And simply take care of your soul. So my hope and prayer is that there may be a new understanding, a new way for you to look at the possibility that when you're in one of these dark nights of the soul, that maybe you could just be a little bit more kind to yourself. Maybe you could have just a little bit more compassion for yourself. Because in truth, every single spiritual seeker will eventually have a dark night of the soul. And the moment when the tools stop working, when the answers disappear, when your faith feels fragile, when you feel all alone, remember that those moments aren't proof that something has gone wrong. Very often, they're the places where something old is dying and something new is being born. Remember that the caterpillar doesn't become a butterfly without entering the chrysalis. And inside the chrysalis, everything dissolves before something new emerges. Sometimes the same thing happens to us. The old identity dissolves. The old understanding falls apart. And for a time, it feels like darkness. But that darkness doesn't mean it's the end. It just means it's the transformation. So even if you find yourself going through this, I'm going to share some thoughts that helped me get through my dark nights of the soul. So when nothing is working, what helped me was to just stop. Stop what you're doing, stop what you're trying, stop fighting, stop doing everything, and accept. This is what's going on. I can only change so much. I'll change what I can change, but this thing's out of my hands. And then I surrendered to it. I just let it go. It's in your hands, God. Although at that time, I didn't even use the word God. I just surrendered it. And the last thing I said is take deep care of yourself. Take care of yourself, whatever that means for you. Deep, deep, deep care for yourself. And remember, lastly, that the psalm does not say we live in the valley. It says that we walk through the valley. And there are times when we just have no idea how long we're going to be down there. But remember, you will get through it. And even when it doesn't feel like it, the last thing I would say is that just know that you're never alone. You're never alone. And if you need to come here and get a hug, or you need to talk, or you just need somebody to be with you, just to sit with you and not say anything, that's what we do here. That's what we do here. So, if you're there, my heart's with you. If you're not, thank you. Hold the space. Be on the mountaintop. Thank you. I hope there was something here, a pebble or two that you take away with you that helps. That's my hope and prayer. I have this thought, right? You're going to go home. So what'd you talk about at church today? Oh, he talked about the dark night of the soul and how depressing it is and how sad it was. You know what? In my opinion, if you're going to live this life, I'm going to show up here and be authentic. And I'm going to tell you the truth of what it was like. And I'm going to tell you the truth is you're going to have your mountaintop experiences and you are going to have your valley experiences. That's what we signed up for, folks. And I'd rather be open and honest and transparent about it than try to hide it and pretend that I'm some perfect human being that has never gone through difficult and hard times. I often say this, I am not the same guy I was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and don't even get me talking about 30 years ago. Not even close. Not even close. But I think that's the beautiful part about it, is that when we start doing this work, we can change and we can mature, and then we can start living this stuff out so that even when the dark nights of the soul come up, you're not as freaked out. You're like, okay, all right. So anyways, thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing the light that you are. Thank you for being a part of this community. If this helps, or if being in this community helps, my only ask is that you think about letting people know. That would be fantastic. Other than that, thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here this morning. You touch me by you being here. Your presence matters. Your being matters. Just know that. You are loved, and we are grateful that you came. God bless. Namaste and Namaway.